also known as Roland Garros, is a major tennis tournament held over 2 weeks at the Stade Roland Garros in Paris, France, beginning in late May each year. The tournament and venue are named after the French aviator Roland Garros. The French Open is the premier clay court championship in the world, and the only Grand Slam tournament currently held on this surface. It is chronologically the second of the 4 annual Grand Slam tournaments. The other 3 are the Australian Open, Wimbledon, and the US Open. Until 1975, the French Open was the only major tournament not played on grass. Between the 7 rounds needed for a championship, the clay surface characteristics of slower pace and higher bounce, and the best of 5 set men's singles matches, the French Open is widely regarded as the most physically demanding tournament in the world. Hey fact friends, a big welcome back to the channel and to another Whisper Facts episode. And today we're covering one of the 4 Grand Slam tennis tournaments, the French Open. Now this is a topic I know a fair bit about. It's one of my own personal hobbies, watching tennis, so I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about the event, and I hope you guys are as well. So if you like content like this, be sure to hit the like button, consider subscribing if you haven't done so, and additionally, I have a new audio device today for this video. It's a Tascam dictaphone, and it's my first time ever owning anything like this, so we will play it by ear, and I do believe it has ear-to-ear capabilities. So if I go to one side of it, you can hear me in one side of your ear, and if I go to the other, you should hopefully be able to hear me in the other side. So yeah, we will be using this device for the very first time today, and we will see how it goes. So, with all that out of the way, it's time to lay back, relax, and let yourself drift away as I whisper facts about the French Open. Officially named in French, and I will give this my best shot, the Les Internationaux de France de Tennis. I think that was quite a good effort. Which in English means French Internationals of Tennis. The tournament itself uses the name Roland Garros in all languages, and it is almost always called the French Open in English, and I apologize if my pronunciation of the French title wasn't too good, but I was quite impressed with my efforts there, to be honest. The first French Open was played in 1891. It has been played at its current location, Stade Roland Garros in Paris, since 1928. The tournament is named after Roland Garros, who was an aviator and a war hero. But he was more interested in football, rugby, and cycling than in tennis. Amongst many other recognitions, he is best remembered for equipping fighter planes with machine guns through the propeller. In 1928, when it was France's turn to defend the Davis Cup, the stadium was constructed and named after the famous war veteran. I had an who Roland Garros was, but I couldn't quite recall upon seeing his name. When you watch a lot of the tournaments, naturally you will see segments about the history of the competition and such, and I have seen him talked about before during the coverage. But yeah, he was an aviator and a war hero, so he was somebody who was a significant part of French history. Even though the surface is called clay, it isn't strictly made of clay. Back in the 1980s, for practical reasons, powdered terracotta was scattered all over the grass courts to prevent them from drying. Over the years, many technological advances were made, but the concept has remained the same. As of today, the courts consist of 5 layers that are about 80 centimeters in depth in total. The first layer is made of stones, followed by gravel, volcanic residue, limestone, and finally a thin layer of crushed brick, which gives it its red appearance. This is something else that I have seen reports about during coverage. You know, where there's been rain delays and things of that nature, and they need to fill the time up. It's reports like this that do that, and it went into detail, I recall, about how the surface was created. I don't recall too much about it other than the top surface being of crushed brick, which is why it's red in appearance, as the fact states. I recall an experiment they did, not at the French Open, but at another clay court tournament, quite a few years ago this was, and I think it was possibly the Madrid Open, and they used blue clay, so it was a really sort of wild experiment they tried. They tried blue clay, which was quite strange, I think, and it was a major flop. Nobody enjoyed it. It was just wrong, and nobody liked it, and the ball played very differently on it, and there was just a lot of complaints about that blue clay, and I don't think that we will ever see it return. In comparison with other Grand Slams, Roland Garros is the smallest in terms of the overall size. Within a 21-acre complex, you will come across 21 courts, a garden, a restaurant, a bar complex, and a multimedia museum on the history of tennis. The French Open may be the smallest, but it is the most accessible to travelers thanks to its proximity to the city centre. Yeah, for a long time it's been said that the French Open has fallen behind the other slams in terms of the complex, and until recent years it was fairly dated, and it did need a lot of upgrades, which it since had, but we will get into that in a bit more detail later on in the video. The winner of the men's French Open wins the Coupe des Mousquetaires, or the Musketeers Trophy. In the 1920s and 30s, French players such as Jean Borotta, Henri Crochet, Jacques Brunon, and René Lacoste dominated the Davis Cup. France won 6 cups between the years 1927 and 1932. Thinking 6 cups were won in Roland Garros. The tournament itself adopted the nickname that referred to France's star players. The women, meanwhile, win the Suzanne Lenglen Trophy. This honours another famous French player from a different time. The doubles tennis prizes also have names that honour tennis legends: Jacques Brunon, Simone Mathieu, and Marcel Bernard. I love this fact that the men's trophy is called the Musketeers Trophy, and the reasoning behind it. That's brand new information to me, and I really like this fact. It's my favourite so far of the video. And also the women's trophy being named the Suzanne Lenglen Trophy, as it's the second show court on the complex, as well shows how important she was in the history of French tennis. And the first show court, I believe, is called the Philippe Chatrier. I probably haven't pronounced that quite right, but yeah, I believe it's the Philippe Chatrier court. So when it comes to the French Open, the show courts are all named after people of significance in France's history, whether they are associated with tennis or not. When it comes to men's singles, Michael Chang was just 17 when he won the tournament in 1989. He defeated Stefan Edberg in a 5-set match to lift the title. Although he was seeded 15, he beat top players like Pete Sampras and Ivan Lendl to reach the finals. When it comes to the women's singles, in 1990, at the age of 16, Monica Seles went on to become the youngest player to win the championship. She beat Steffi Graf, seeded number 1 in the final, in straight sets to win the Grand Slam. Michael Chang. There's a name that I haven't heard for a long time. That was a bit before my time in 1989. I think I only really started to watch the French Open consistently around 2013, which is quite late, to be honest, given the fact that I've been watching the likes of Wimbledon since the 1990s. But in general, my interest in tennis has grown steadily over the last 3 or 4 years. It used to be that I only watched Wimbledon, and then it became Wimbledon and the French Open, and more tournaments began getting added onto my viewing, to the point now where I watch tennis all season long. Amazon Prime actually cover a lot of the events here in the UK, and it's basically become my number 1 sport. I enjoy watching it more so than football, but that's a whole other conversation as to why. So yeah, Monica Seles won the French Open at the age of 16, which is an amazing accomplishment at such a young age, and she was a great player in her time. And to beat Steffi Graf as well, who was the best player in the sport at that time, just shows what an accomplishment it was. Althea Gibson was the first African American to win the tournament when she triumphed at the French Open in 1956. She beat the defending champion Angela Mortimer in straight sets to win the tournament. Her win at the Roland Garros caused ripples worldwide and was historically a significant movement for African American community. With the hope of breaking more barriers for African Americans, she turned her attentions to basketball and golf and turned professional in both of these sports. Yeah, no doubt, a huge accomplishment there as well. And I love facts like this. People like Althea Gibson and also Arthur Ashe, who was the first black man to ever win Wimbledon. They're breakthrough moments in the game for sure, and moments that go down in history. Rafael Nadal, with 13 titles, is the most successful player and the king of the clay court. This incredible feat will continue to reverberate for many generations and decades. His ability to hit a forehand with its uncanny topspin and his court coverage has unsettled many of the top players. When it comes to women's singles, Chris Evert holds the record for winning 7 titles, followed by Steffi Graf. Her immaculate footwork, placement, and undeterred focus gave her an advantage over her opponents. So yeah, this is a more up-to-date fact that Rafa Nadal is the 13 times champion, and I felt he was fitting to include on the thumbnail for this video for that very reason. He really is the king of the clay courts. His record at the French Open is absolutely remarkable. For that reason, I have huge respect for him, and I would absolutely love if he could add 1 or 2 more titles as of the recording of this video. I mean, I don't think his record will ever be broken. Certainly not in my lifetime anyway. Chris Evert, meanwhile, although before my time, has 7 titles, which is another very respectable tally. The clay courts really do suit a certain style of player, whilst others don't play well on it and may favour other surfaces. And I love that about tennis. And as you watch it and you get to know these players, you become accustomed to what players do well on what surfaces. And Rafa Nadal will always be the king of clay, although he has won numerous Grand Slams on other surfaces, and as of the recording of this video, has the all-time highest Grand Slam total of 21. At the beginning of the Open era in 1968, the winners walked away with a check for 15,000 francs. Fast forward to 2007, both male and female winners win an equal amount of €1 million, which was the first time in history. Today, the prizes surpass more than €2 million. Yeah, with time, 250 ball boys and girls every year. These young volunteers are between 12 and 16 years old and can't exceed 1.75 meters in height. In addition, they can't wear glasses. Every tournament goes through more than 60,000 tennis balls and more than 1,500 reporters from all around the world cover the event. It's kind of strange that you need to be under 1.75 meters and you can't wear glasses to be a ball boy or girl. That seems a little off to me, especially in today's society. I'm not sure why wearing glasses would make any difference, so it's slightly discriminating to kids who would love to be ball boys or girls at the event, but can't because of trivial reasons like this. But there we go, perhaps it will change in the future. From 1941 to 1945, the tournament could not take place because of the ongoing World War II. Despite this, an unofficial tournament was held on each year of that period, and which actually helped the French to keep their spirits high. Additionally, only French nationals were allowed to play in this unofficial tournament. And I'm pretty sure that I've heard this fact before. It rings a bell. It's good they at least had some sort of tournament during those years, as most sports were on hold during the Second World War. Since the Open era began, only 2 French players have ever won the Roland Garros trophy. The last French national to win the singles title was Mary Pierce in 2000, whilst Yannick Noah won the men's title in 1983. Yeah, I remember when Mary Pierce won it. I think I watched that match, or part of it anyway. I was quite young at the time, a teenager, and it's been far too long without another French winner. That being said, there aren't really that many French players in tennis that are challengers for slams. On the women's side, there's the likes of Elise Cornet and Caroline Garcia, who are decent players, I would say, sort of top 32 range, but they aren't really going to mount a serious challenge to win a slam. And on the men's side, there is the likes of Gael Monfils, who has been a real crowd pleaser for many years, and also Jo-Wilfried Tsonga, amongst others, but similarly to the women's side, they've only really been sort of top 32 players, although I know Tsonga has made it deeper into tournaments in the past, but I think he's coming towards the end of his career, so we'll have to see in the future if France can produce some players of higher quality who could potentially challenge for the French Open in the future. From 2004 to 2008, plans were developed to build a covered stadium with a roof, as complaints continued over delayed matches. Various proposals were put forward to expand the facility or to move the French Open to a completely new 55-court venue outside of Paris city limits. In 2011, the decision was taken to maintain the tournament within its existing venue. The expansion project called for a new stadium to be built alongside the historical Ontario's greenhouses. I probably pronounced that completely wrong. And expansion of old stadiums and the tournament village. A wide-ranging project to overhaul the venue was presented in 2011, including building a roof over Court Philippe Chatrier, demolishing and replacing Court Number 1. Renovation work finally commenced at the close of the 2018 edition of the tournament. Redeveloped seating and a retractable roof was constructed for Court Philippe Chatrier, and the new 5,000-seat court Simone Mathieu was opened, having been named after France's second highest achieving female tennis player, and noted for its innovative use of greenhouse encasing architecture. The renewal of the venue has been generally well received by the players and the public. The 2020 edition of the tournament, which was the first to be assisted by the roof over Court Philippe Chatrier, was postponed until late September and early October, and was played in front of limited spectators due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Floodlights were also installed over each of the courts in the precinct, allowing the tournament to facilitate night matches for the very first time. So yeah, this was touched on briefly earlier in the video. The Roland Garros complex and how it's fallen behind the other slams. But as we just heard, many changes have taken place over the last few years, and it really does show. The new stadium, the Simone Mathieu, is impressive, and the introduction of the roof as well, which was very much needed during the delayed 2020 event when it was held in October that year due to COVID. So yeah, there's lots of improvements taking place at Roland Garros, and no doubt more are to come in the future. And finally, the longest clay court match played at Roland Garros was 6 hours and 33 minutes at the 2004 French Open. Fabrice Santoro defeated Arnold Clément in the first round after 2 days by a score of 6-4, 6-3, 6-7, 3-6, 16-14. This was the longest match in history until Wimbledon 2010, where John Isner defeated Nicolas Mahut after 11 hours. And what I will first say regarding this fact is, I'm not against the really long matches. I can see the appeal to them, but I think now is the right time for change to happen, which of course it is happening as of this year, 2022. The 4 Grand Slams have all decided that if a match reaches 2 sets all in men's or 1 set all in women's and 6 games all, that there will be a 10-point tiebreak to decide the match. I think it's a 10-point tiebreak. It may be a standard 7-point tiebreak, but I'm completely in favour of it. I just think it makes the most sense for the well-being it's all around good for the game of tennis. Well guys, that is just about it for this Whisper Facts episode about the French Open. I hope you enjoyed the facts. Thank you all so much for joining me as always and supporting the channel as we continue to grow. And if you want to see more sports related content, check out the playlist in the description. I group all of my content into playlists, so if there's particular topics that you're interested in, you might just find a related playlist, so feel free to have a browse at those. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like, comment, and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so. And until next time, rest easy, sleep well, and I hope to see you again very soon for another video. And goodbye for now.